The grand hall of the Azalari Palace was silent, except for the slow hum of the energy torches along the walls. The alien queen sat upon her high throne, her silver crown resting just above her sharp, graceful features. Her name was Serenia, ruler of the Zalari Empire, a leader known for her calm, her strength, and her stubborn heart. But today, she was not calm. Today, her heart ached in a way that felt unbearable. Before her knelt 3 war officers, their armor dented and scratched from recent battles. The one in the middle held a small black box in his hands, a message capsule used to send final reports to the palace. Serenia's voice trembled slightly as she asked, "Is this all that remains of the human commander?" The officer lowered his head. "Yes, my queen. The Battle of Orcs Prime, it was a massacre. The enemy fleet outnumbered us 20 to 1. His unit was cut off from retreat. We saw his ship break apart. No one could have survived." Serenia closed her eyes. She did not let the court see the tears threatening to escape. Humans were not common in the Zalari Empire. Few traveled this far from their own star systems. Fewer still earned the respect of alien warriors. But one had, a man named Ethan, a soldier from Earth, a man who, against all odds, had captured her heart. It was a scandal when they married. The Zalari Council whispered that no alien ruler should bind themselves to an outsider. Even her closest advisors warned that humans were fragile, short-lived, and unpredictable. But Serenia had seen more than that in Ethan. She had seen his courage when he saved her during a failed peace summit 3 years ago. She had seen his loyalty when he stayed by her side despite political threats. She had seen his fierce determination in the way he fought for both her people and his own, and now they told her he was gone. The officers left the throne room, their footsteps echoing against the crystal floor. The heavy doors closed behind them, leaving Serenia alone with her thoughts. She rose from her throne, walking toward the large window at the far end of the hall. From there, she could see the twin moons of Zalari Prime hanging over the horizon. The sight used to bring her peace. Now it felt like a reminder that the galaxy was too big, too cruel, and too eager to take from her. "You can't stay like this," said a familiar voice. Serenia turned. It was her advisor, Karen, a tall Zalari with golden eyes and the posture of a seasoned warrior. "My queen, I understand your grief, but the Empire needs stability. The Council will demand you choose a new consort. Stop," she said sharply. "There will be no new consort, not while I breathe." Karen hesitated. "And if the Council refuses? You know what this could mean for the throne." "I do not care," she said. Her voice was quiet, but the steel in it was unmistakable. "Ethan is not gone. I would know if he was." Karen looked at her for a long moment, then bowed. "Very well. But hope can be dangerous, my queen." After he left, Serenia found herself walking through the palace gardens. They were quiet, filled with tall, silver-leafed trees that whispered in the night wind. This was where she and Ethan had walked many times. She remembered his smile when he saw the glowing blooms for the first time, how he compared them to the flowers of earth, and how his voice had grown soft when he promised her he would always return. That night, she dreamed of him. Not as he was at the wedding, dressed in his human military uniform, but as she had last seen him before the battle. His armor was scratched, his face marked with fatigue, yet his eyes still carried that unshakable fire. "I'll be back," he had told her. "Don't believe any report that says otherwise." She woke before dawn, her chest tight. Maybe it was just a dream. Or maybe it was a reminder. Days turned into weeks. War reports continued to come in, and the enemy, a brutal species known as the Kelvar, kept pushing into Zalari territory. Serenia did her duty as queen, but every night she thought of Ethan. Then, one evening, everything changed. A palace guard rushed into the council chamber during a routine meeting. "My queen," he said, breathing heavily, "a courier drone has arrived from beyond our borders. Its identification code is unusual. It is not from any Zalari fleet." Serenia felt a strange chill. "Bring it to me." The drone was small, about the size of her hand, with a cracked outer shell. The palace technicians carefully opened it, revealing a single data crystal. Most of its files were corrupted, flickering in and out of view. But one fragment remained intact, a short handwritten message in human script, 3 words, "Still alive." "Ethan," Serenia's breath caught. Her hands tightened around the crystal. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. "This could be a trick," one said. "The Kelvar are known for psychological warfare," but Serenia shook her head. "The handwriting is his, and the Kelvar wouldn't know this code." She pointed to a small mark beside the words, a symbol from a private joke between her and Ethan, something no outsider could fake. The council erupted into arguments. Some claimed it was too dangerous to investigate. Others argued that if Ethan had information, it could turn the tide of the war. Finally, Serenia stood and silenced them. "I am queen of the Zalari Empire," she said. "I will decide what risks we take. And I say, we search for him." That night, she summoned her most trusted covert ship commander. "Take a stealth vessel," she ordered. "Follow the partial coordinates in the drone's memory. Bring me anything you find, or anyone." As the ship left under cover of darkness, Serenia stood alone in the docking bay, watching the stars. Her heart pounded with a mix of hope and fear. If Ethan truly was alive, then the galaxy had lied to her. If he was alive, she would find him. Far away, in a place no Zalari map recorded, a man lay on cold metal flooring. Dim light flickered overhead. His body ached, his armor was torn, and his mind was foggy. He didn't know how long he'd been here, wherever here was. He remembered fire, explosions, and the tearing apart of his ship. Then, darkness. His name was Ethan, and he was not dead. But what he had seen since waking up in this strange place would change everything, for him, for Serenia, and for the entire galaxy. Ethan's eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the dim, flickering lights above him. The air was thick with the smell of rust and burned circuitry. For a moment he didn't move. Every muscle in his body felt stiff, and his head throbbed as if he had been unconscious for days. He tried to remember the last thing he saw. The battle, the Kelvar ships swarming around him, the explosion tearing through his vessel, and then nothing. He sat up slowly. The floor beneath him was metal, but not the clean kind used on warships. This was old, dented, and littered with scraps of unfamiliar technology. He looked around. The room was large, filled with broken consoles and dark screens. Walls curved upward like the inside of some massive shell. It didn't look like any Zalari or human design. Ethan pushed himself to his feet, ignoring the pain in his ribs. His armor was still on, but badly damaged. One shoulder plate was missing, and deep scorch marks covered his chest piece. He tapped the small communicator on his wrist, but it gave nothing except static. "Great," he muttered under his breath. "No comms, no backup, no idea where I am." As he moved toward the doorway, he noticed strange marks along the walls. Long, jagged lines, almost like claw scratches, ran in patterns that made no sense. Then, in one corner, he saw something that made his pulse quicken. A pile of helmets. They were all from different species, human, Xalari, even the scaled helmets of the Joran fighters. All of them were cracked or burned. Someone had been collecting trophies. Before he could examine them further, he heard a sound, soft, like metal scraping against metal. Ethan crouched low and scanned the shadows. Movement. Something was there. Figure stepped into the light. It wasn't Kelvar. Its body was tall and thin, covered in dull black plating that looked grown rather than built. Its face had no mouth, only a smooth mask with 3 glowing blue eyes arranged in a triangle. Human, it said, its voice mechanical and flat, yet the sound felt like it was spoken directly into his mind. You are awake. Ethan kept his stance defensive. Where am I? Who are you? You are in the graveyard, the being replied. We found you after the battle. You were almost gone, but we preserved you. Graveyard. Ethan glanced past the creature and saw another doorway, leading to a vast open space. Beyond it, he glimpsed hundreds, maybe thousands, of derelict ships floating in the void, connected by thin bridges of metal. Some ships looked centuries old. Others seemed freshly destroyed. Why? Ethan asked. The being tilted its head. Because you carry something the Kelvar want. Your mind. Those words made him uneasy. My mind? Your memories. Your experience. The Kelvar steal knowledge from the minds of their enemies. They feed it to their soldiers so they may fight, like those they kill. But when they tried to take yours, the being's voice paused for a moment. You resisted. You fought back inside the siphon. And you saw. Saw what? Ethan demanded. The being moved closer, and for the first time, Ethan noticed that it walked, with a limp as if injured. You saw the hidden fleet. The words hit him like a punch. The Kelvar fleet they had been fighting was already massive, enough to overwhelm entire systems. But if there was another fleet, hidden somewhere, it could mean the end for both the Zalari Empire and humanity. Where is it? Ethan asked. Deep in the black systems, the being said. Where light does not reach and no maps exist. They build their fleet from the remains of conquered worlds. Every ship you saw in the graveyard was stripped for parts and weapons. They are almost ready to strike. Ethan's fists clenched. And you're telling me this because you are the only one who can warn them, the being said. But the Kelvar know you escaped the siphon. They will hunt you. And if they find you, they will finish what they started. Before Ethan could respond, a low, deep hum filled the air. The lights flickered violently. The being's head snapped toward the doorway. Too late. They are here. Who's here? Ethan asked. The answer came in the form of a sharp screech that echoed through the chamber. Kelvar warriors poured through the hall, their insect-like bodies covered in black and crimson armor. Weapons crackled with energy as they charged. Move! The being shouted. Ethan didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed a discarded rifle from the floor and followed the being through the twisting corridors. The place was a maze with bridges, connecting wrecked ship sections. The air was colder here, and each breath felt heavy. The Kelvar were fast. Blasts of red plasma sizzled past Ethan's head as he fired back. His aim was still sharp despite the pain in his side, dropping 2 of the attackers before they could close in. The being led him toward a narrow platform where a small shuttle waited. This will take you to the outer debris field. From there, you can escape into the neutral zones. What about you? Ethan asked. I cannot leave, the being said. My time ended long ago. But you still have a war to fight. Before Ethan could argue, another blast rocked the platform, sending sparks into the air. Kelvar forces were closing in. Ethan climbed into the shuttle, slamming the hatch shut. The being activated the launch sequence, and the craft shot forward, weaving through the tangled wreckage of the graveyard. Behind them, Ethan caught a last glimpse of the strange figure before the view was swallowed by darkness. Minutes later, the shuttle broke free into open space. His navigation screen flickered. Most systems were damaged, but the stealth mode still worked. He plotted a course toward a set of coordinates he remembered from a long-forgotten mission. It wasn't much, but it was a start. He sat back in the pilot's seat, breathing hard. The Kelvar had a hidden fleet. The Zalari and humanity didn't know. And if he didn't make it back in time, it would be too late. As the stars stretched into long lines around him, Ethan whispered to himself, "Hold on, Serenia. I'm coming home." Back on Zalari Prime, Queen Serenia stood in the palace's command chamber, watching a holographic map of the sector. Her covert ship had just sent its first update. Debris from a human shuttle had been found drifting near uncharted space. But along with it came disturbing news. Kelvar ships were moving in unusual patterns, as if preparing for something. She clenched her fists. She didn't know yet that Ethan was alive. She didn't know yet that the war was about to change. But deep inside, her heart still told her the same thing it had from the beginning. He was out there, and he would find his way back to her, and this time she would be ready to fight beside him. The Orbital Academy felt different that morning. Corridors that were normally filled with casual noise now had a strange tension in the air, as if everyone was waiting for something to happen. Whispers followed Ethan wherever he went. Some students glanced at him, quickly looking away when he noticed. Others smirked like they were in on a secret. He didn't know why. After weeks of constant bullying, he had learned to expect trouble, but today felt heavier. The first half of the day passed in silence from the usual bullies, which was unusual. No tripping him in the halls, no mocking during training drills. It wasn't kindness. It was the kind of quiet before a storm. During the midday meal, he sat alone at his usual table, pulling apart a piece of protein bread when the room's overhead lights dimmed. A loud chime rang through the academy speakers. Attention. Priority 1 docking clearance requested at Station Bay Alpha. Students glanced at each other. Priority 1 was rarely used, reserved for high-level military or diplomatic arrivals. The Academy wasn't normally involved in such things, so the announcement was unusual. Before anyone could speak, a deep vibration rolled through the floor. The sound was subtle but powerful, like distant thunder. Every head turned toward the large viewing window that overlooked the station's docking bays. And then they saw it. An enormous warship slid into view, its hull plated in a deep silver, alloy that shimmered under the station's lights. Alien symbols ran along its side, glowing faintly. It was easily 3 times larger than any ship most students had ever seen, with heavy weapon emplacements visible along every section. Gasps spread through the cafeteria. Whispers started. "Is that—" "It's a Valori Imperial flagship." "Here? Why?" Ethan froze. The Valori Empire was one of the most feared and respected powers in the galaxy. Their ships rarely appeared in neutral territory unless it was a matter of extreme importance. A group of alien soldiers in ornate armor emerged from the ship, marching in perfect formation across the docking bay. Even from the viewing window, their presence was intimidating. Their armor was a deep crimson with black accents, each soldier carrying a long ceremonial spear tipped with a plasma edge. The Academy's headmaster and several instructors rushed to the bay entrance to greet them. "Who are they here for?" someone whispered. Ethan looked away from the window, uneasy. The soldiers moved with purpose, like they knew exactly where they were going. 10 minutes later, the heavy sound of synchronized boots echoed through the Academy's main hall. The doors to the cafeteria opened, and the Valori soldiers entered in 2 straight lines. Every student fell silent. Between the 2 lines walked a woman unlike anyone Ethan had ever seen. She was tall and graceful, her presence filling the room, without a word. Her armor was gold and black, lined with a flowing dark cape. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes glowing faintly with an inner light. A delicate crown rested on her brow. She scanned the room slowly, her expression unreadable. The moment her gaze fell on Ethan, she stopped walking. The room was so quiet he could hear his own heartbeat. She stepped toward him. Her cape brushed the floor as she knelt slightly, something that shocked everyone present. My son, she said, her voice calm but carrying an undeniable authority. I came as soon as I heard. A wave of gasps swept through the room. The bullies who had mocked him for weeks now looked as if they wanted to vanish into the floor. Ethan's throat felt dry. Mother! The woman, his mother, stood tall again, turning her sharp gaze toward the nearest instructor. I have been informed of the treatment my son has received here. I want every record, every report, and every name involved. Now. The headmaster hurried forward, bowing deeply. Your Majesty, we didn't know— You knew enough to ignore the signs, she cut in coldly. That will be addressed. The soldiers moved without command, activating holographic projectors on their wrists. Images appeared in the air, recordings from the Academy's own security cameras. They showed the bullies tripping Ethan, shoving him, mocking him. There were no excuses left. The soldiers stepped toward the guilty students. The bullies shrank back, their faces pale. Mother, wait, Ethan said quietly. She looked down at him, her expression softening only slightly. Yes, my son? Don't hurt them, he said. Just make them stop. Her gaze lingered on him for a long moment before she nodded once. Very well, but they will remember this day. The soldiers escorted the bullies out under guard, their parents and guardians summoned for immediate council review. The remaining students didn't move or speak until the Empress turned back to her son. You will not remain in these quarters, she said firmly. You will stay on my ship. There, you will have proper protection and proper training. Training? Ethan asked. A faint smile touched her lips. You are my heir. The galaxy will know that. But first, you must be able to stand as both a Valori and a human. You have more strength than you realize, and I will see it brought out, part of Ethan wanted to argue. The idea of leaving the academy felt strange, like running away. But another part of him knew this wasn't escape. It was something else entirely. He nodded slowly. All right. As they walked back toward the docking bay, whispers followed them, but they were no longer filled with mockery. Now there was something different in the voices of his classmates: fear, awe, and respect. When they reached the flagship, Ethan saw its size up close for the first time. Its armor was carved with symbols of ancient battles, each one a story in itself. The entrance ramp alone was larger than the Academy's main hall. Inside, the air was cool and carried a faint metallic scent. Corridors were wide, lined with glowing panels and guards standing at perfect attention. Every soldier who saw them placed a fist over their chest in salute. His mother led him to a private chamber with tall windows overlooking the stars. This will be your quarters, she said. Rest tonight. Tomorrow your training begins. Ethan stood by the window, looking out at the station shrinking in the distance. The academy, the place where he had been humiliated day after day, was behind him now. Ahead was something entirely unknown. He didn't know what kind of training awaited him, or what it meant to be the heir to an empire feared across the galaxy. But for the first time in a long time, he felt something new: hope. And deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The next morning on the Imperial dawn began earlier than Ethan expected. A soft chime echoed through his quarters, followed by the voice of a calm female AI. Wake up, Prince Ethan. Training begins in 20 minutes. For a moment, he lay in bed, unsure if he had dreamt everything. But the steady hum of the massive warship around him and the faint golden glow of the Valori crest above the door reminded him. It was all real. His mother, the Empress Lariel, had brought him here. He, dressed quickly in the plain black training uniform provided the night before. When the door slid open, 2 guards stood outside, their faces hidden behind polished helmets. This way, Your Highness, one said, his voice deep and respectful. The training hall was vast, lined with sleek walls that shifted colors depending. On the program running inside, rows of Valori warriors stood at attention, their armor gleaming under the white light. At the far end, the Empress waited, her arms crossed. "You will be trained by the best," she said, her voice carrying easily across the room. "Combat, tactics, discipline. You will learn to fight as a Valori and think as a leader." An older warrior stepped forward. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with silver hair cut short and sharp eyes that seemed to weigh every detail. "I am Commander Draven," he said. "From this moment, you are my student." Ethan nodded. "Yes, sir." Draven studied him for a moment before giving a short nod. "Good. We begin." The first lesson was movement in low gravity. The training hall's gravity shifted with a low hum, making Ethan feel lighter than normal. Draven demonstrated precise jumps, rolls, and turns, his body moving like water through the air. "Your human muscles are different from ours," Draven explained. "You are not as strong in the legs, but your balance and adaptability can give you an edge. Learn to use it." Ethan tried to copy the moves, stumbling at first. A few warriors watching from the side exchanged small smirks, clearly doubting him. But after several attempts, he began to find a rhythm, adjusting mid-air when his jumps went wrong, catching himself on walls, using momentum to swing forward. Draven's voice broke the silence. "Better. You learn fast." The second lesson was hand-to-hand combat. Valori warriors were famous for their close-quarters skill, blending speed and precision into every strike. Draven assigned Ethan a sparring partner, a young warrior named Kalen, whose gold-edged armor marked him as one of the elite guard. "Attack me," Kalen said simply. Ethan hesitated. "You're faster than me." "Then think faster," Kalen replied. The first round ended quickly. Kalen blocked his strike and gently pushed him to the floor. The second round lasted longer. Ethan remembered something from old Earth training. Vids. Humans could feint, pretending to attack one way and switching at the last second. When Kalen moved to block high, Ethan shifted low, sweeping his leg. Kalen stumbled, and a few onlookers made surprised noises. "Interesting," Kalen said, straightening. "Humans are unpredictable." The Empress, watching from the edge of the hall, allowed the smallest hint of a smile. Over the next hours, Ethan moved from one training station to another. Weapon drills, reaction tests, and even simulated battlefield scenarios. The warriors were relentless, pushing him to his limits. Each time he thought he couldn't continue, Draven's sharp voice cut through his thoughts. Again. And he did. By the time training ended, sweat dripped from his hair and his arms ached. But there was a spark of pride in his chest. That evening, as he sat in his quarters, the Empress entered. She rarely visited without sending word first, so her sudden appearance caught him off guard. "How was your first day?" she asked. "Hard," Ethan admitted. "But good. I didn't think I could do half the things they made me do." "You are my son," she said firmly. "You will find that you are capable of far more than you believe. But skill in battle is not enough. Tomorrow you will also begin studying diplomacy, history, and the laws of the Empire." Ethan made a face. "So, more school?" "School," she said. "That can save lives or start wars. Knowledge is as powerful as any weapon." He didn't argue. Deep down, he understood she was right. Over the next week, Ethan's life followed a strict pattern. Mornings were for physical training, combat drills, strategy games, and obstacle courses that tested both body and mind. Afternoons were for lessons in the Empire's language, customs, and leadership principles. Evenings were often spent reviewing the day's training or sparring with one of the guards. To his surprise, some of the warriors who had looked down on him at first began to treat him with respect. Kalen, his first sparring partner, even offered, tips on improving his footwork. But not everyone was pleased with his progress. Back at the academy, news of Ethan's training spread quickly. Students whispered about the human prince, who now trained with elite Vylori warriors. The bullies who had been taken away returned days later, quieter and with their families facing heavy fines and public shame. Though they no longer dared to touch him, resentment burned in their eyes. One afternoon, as the academy prepared for the upcoming interspecies tournament, Ethan overheard two of them talking near the comms station. "He's not that special," one said bitterly. "Just got lucky because of who his mother is." "Yeah," the other replied. "We'll see how he does in the tournament. Without his guards, he's just another weak human." When Ethan returned to the academy for classes that week, the headmaster announced that all students would participate in the tournament. It was a public event, attended by parents, officials, and sometimes even representatives from nearby planets. His mother's words echoed in his mind. "The galaxy will know you." This would be his first chance to prove himself, not just as the Empress's son, but as someone who could stand on his own. Training for the tournament was different from the Empire's regimen. The Academy's exercises focused on speed, reflexes, and endurance. Ethan applied everything he had learned aboard the Imperial Dawn. While others relied on raw strength or natural alien advantages, he blended tactics, feints, and quick thinking. Draven, who had come to observe one of his sessions, nodded approvingly. "You will not win by being stronger. You will win by being smarter." The night before the tournament, Ethan sat in his quarters, looking out at the stars beyond the station. His mother entered quietly. "Nervous?" she asked. "A little," he admitted. "Everyone will be watching. If you lose," she said calmly, "you will learn. But if you win, they will see you differently. Victory is not about showing strength. It is about changing how others see you." He thought about that long after she left. The next morning, the tournament arena buzzed with excitement. Banners of different species hung from the high walls, and the crowd filled every seat. The matches would be one-on-one, no weapons beyond standard training gear. When Ethan's name was called, a ripple of whispers spread through the audience. His opponent was a tall, broad-shouldered alien with thick-scaled skin, one of the Academy's top fighters. The bullies watched from the sidelines, smirking. The match began. The alien charged forward, confident in his size and strength. Ethan sidestepped at the last second, letting the momentum carry his opponent past him. The crowd reacted with surprise. The alien attacked again, but Ethan was already moving, using the agility and timing drilled into him during training. He struck when there were openings, never staying in one place long enough to be caught. Minutes passed. The bigger fighter was breathing heavily, his attacks growing slower. Ethan saw his chance. With a quick feint to the left, he darted right, sweeping his opponent's leg and sending him to the ground. The buzzer sounded. The crowd erupted. From the stands, the Empress rose, her expression proud but composed. For the first time, the students, teachers, and even the bullies saw Ethan not just as a human, but as someone who could stand among the galaxy's best. And deep inside, Ethan felt something he hadn't in years. He belonged. The cheers from the tournament still echoed in Ethan's mind hours later. Winning his first match had silenced many doubts, but it was only the beginning. The tournament was far from over, and the next day promised even tougher opponents. He sat alone in the Academy's observation lounge that evening, looking out at the distant stars. The crowd had seen him win once. Now he had to prove it wasn't luck. As the door slid open, Kalen, the Vylori guard who had trained with him aboard the Imperial Dawn, stepped in. "The Empress is proud," Kalen said, crossing his arms. "But she also knows pride can be dangerous. Tomorrow you face someone who will test everything you've learned." "Who?" Ethan asked. "A Traxan fighter," Kalen replied. "Fast, strong, and aggressive. They will not hold back." The next morning, the arena was even more crowded than before. Word had spread across the station. The human prince was fighting again. Merchants, traders, station officers, and even visitors from other systems had come to watch. Ethan stepped into the ring, wearing the same light training armor as before. His opponent, the Traxan fighter, was taller by nearly 2 heads, with dark, plated skin and eyes like burning coals. The alien gave a small, mocking grin. "Don't worry," the Traxan said. "I'll make it quick." The match began with a sharp chime. The Traxan lunged forward instantly, his strikes a blur. Ethan dodged the first few blows, but the speed and power behind them forced him to move faster than he had in his previous match. He remembered Draven's voice from training. "Don't meet strength with strength. Use what they give you." When the Traxan threw a heavy punch, Ethan sidestepped and redirected the arm, using the alien's own momentum to send him stumbling forward. The crowd reacted with surprise, but the Traxan recovered quickly, circling him with renewed focus. The fight lasted longer than anyone expected. The Traxan's attacks were relentless, but Ethan's movements were sharp, unpredictable. He mixed feints, quick counters, and sudden changes of direction, forcing his opponent to adapt. Finally, after a flurry of exchanged blows, Ethan saw his opening. He ducked under a wide strike, moved in close, and used both hands to push the Traxan's center of balance off. The alien hit the mat hard. The buzzer sounded. The arena erupted in cheers. The Traxan, breathing heavily, stood and gave Ethan a short nod of respect before leaving the ring. As the day went on, Ethan advanced through more matches, each opponent different, some relying on speed, others on brute strength or cunning traps. He adapted to each one, remembering lessons from both the academy and the Valori training hall. By the time the final match arrived, the crowd's energy was electric. The announcer's voice rang out, "Final round, Ethan Valori versus Jex, a Valen." The sound of that name made Ethan's chest tighten. Jex was one of the bullies who had made his life miserable before the Empress's arrival. Jex stepped into the ring, his smirk back in place. "Looks like we meet again, human," he said, "but this time no guards to protect you." Ethan didn't respond. The buzzer sounded and the match began. Jex was fast, faster than Ethan remembered, and he fought with a mix of skill and anger. His strikes came in unpredictable bursts, forcing Ethan to stay on the defensive. But unlike before, Ethan wasn't just enduring the blows. He was studying him. Jex's movements had a pattern. After every 2 quick strikes, he left his right side open. The next time it happened, Ethan acted. He blocked the first strike, dodged the second, and stepped into the opening, delivering a solid hit that sent Jex stumbling back. The crowd roared. Anger flashed in Jex's eyes. He charged, swinging wildly. Ethan let him burn energy, dodging until the alien's attacks slowed. Then, with precise timing, Ethan swept his legs and sent him to the mat. The buzzer blared. Ethan had won. The crowd's cheers were deafening. In the stands, the Empress rose to her feet, her expression proud but composed. Jex glared at Ethan. But there was no mockery left. Only the bitter recognition that he had been beaten fairly. As Ethan left the ring, Kalen met him at the edge. "You fought well," the guard said. "You didn't just win. You made them see you differently." That evening, a celebration was held in the Academy's Great Hall. Students, teachers, and visiting dignitaries attended. The air was filled with music and banners from the day's victories hung above. The Empress stood before the gathering. "Today," she began, "my son fought not as a prince, but as a warrior. He faced strength, speed, and hatred, and he overcame them all. This is what it means to be Valori. And this is what it means to be human." She looked at Ethan. "You are both. Never forget that." Later, as the crowd mingled, Ethan stood near one of the tall windows, looking out at the stars. His mother joined him quietly. "You have done more than I hoped," she said softly. "But this was just one battle. There will be greater tests ahead. I know, Ethan said. But I'm ready for them. Her eyes softened. Yes, my son, you are. As the Imperial Dawn prepared to depart the station the next morning, the Academy's halls were filled with talk of the human who had faced the galaxy's best and stood victorious. Some spoke of his skill, others of his royal blood, but most agreed on one thing. He had earned their respect. For Ethan, the journey was only beginning. He no longer walked with his head down. Whether on the station, in the Academy, or anywhere else in the galaxy, he carried himself as both a son of Earth and heir to the Valori throne. And deep in his heart, he knew that the boy who once sat, alone at the far table, was gone. In his place stood someone stronger, someone ready to face whatever the stars would bring.